My son looked me dead in the eye and said, "Mom, people your age have accidents all the time." I was holding a cup of tea. I set it down before my hands started to shake. My name is Margaret Evans, 70 years old widow, once proud of the quiet little life I built after my husband passed. When Harold died, the house felt too big, too silent. My son Brian insisted I move in with him and his wife Lydia in Denver. He said it would be good for all of us family taking care of family. I believed him. Foolishly maybe, but I did. At first it felt comforting. I cooked dinner most nights, watched their 2 children after school, slipped a little money toward groceries and bills. I thought I was helping part of something again. But slowly I realized I wasn't a guest. I was a line item in their budget, something they calculated, tolerated, and quietly resented. Lydia was polite in that clipped, chilly way women use when they're already imagining life without you in it. She'd say things like, "You should really join a senior community, Margaret. They have activities and people your age. That your age landed like a bruise every time." Brian went along, nodding, avoiding eye contact. The same boy who once ran to me when he scraped his knees now avoided being alone with me. The conversations behind closed doors grew shorter, sharper. I'd catch fragments, extra groceries, utilities, burden. Each word cut deeper than the last. Then came the night in the kitchen. The children were asleep, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Lydia leaned against the counter, her wine glass glinting under the light. Brian stood near the doorway, arms crossed like a guard. "We've been talking," she began, voice coated in sugar. "About your future, Margaret. You need a place that can really support you medical staff friends your age. Somewhere safe. Safe from what I asked." She smiled, that slow, deliberate smile of someone rehearsing cruelty. "People your age have accidents all the time. Very easy targets." The room tilted. My own son said nothing, only looked down at the floor. I felt something inside me snap, not loudly, not violently, just the clean, cold sound of trust breaking. That was the moment I understood. They weren't trying to help me. They were making plans for me without me. I finished my tea in silence, then went to my room and closed the door. The tears came later, hot and bitter. But when they stopped, I made myself a promise. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd play smart. And I would not lose. 2 months later, the impossible happened. I bought a Powerball ticket on a whim at the corner store, mostly to remind myself I still could. I wasn't even sure why. Maybe I just wanted to feel a little reckless again. The next morning, when I saw the numbers blinking back at me from the TV screen, I thought my glasses were smudged. I cleaned them, looked again, and felt my knees go weak. $58.2 million. After taxes, it was still more money than I'd ever dreamed of touching. I sat there in the kitchen staring at that ticket, laughing and crying all at once. Not out of joy, out of disbelief, and maybe a little anger. Because fate, with its strange sense of humor, had just handed me the ultimate revenge tool. Most people in my position would have packed their bags, moved out, started fresh somewhere with palm trees and no memories. But not me. No. I wanted something more valuable than escape. I wanted truth. I wanted to see just how far my son and his wife were willing to go. So I called a man named Daniel Perez, an investigative journalist I'd seen on local TV. He'd done a segment on financial elder abuse families who quietly drained their parents' savings in the name of care. When he picked up, his voice was cautious but kind. "Mrs. Evans, if what you're describing is real, we can document it. But I have to warn you, it could get ugly fast." I said, "Mr. Perez Ugly has already moved into my house." 2 days later, his team arrived while Brian and Lydia were at work. They installed tiny cameras and microphones in ordinary places, a vase on the mantle, the picture frame in the hallway, even inside my favorite cookie tin. Everything fed into encrypted drives hidden behind the washing machine. Then we built a plan, a small test. A friend would call, pretending to represent a marketing sweepstakes, congratulating me on a $25,000 prize, plus a modest monthly payment. Nothing outrageous, just enough bait to expose greed. The next evening, as Lydia reheated leftovers, I took the call right in front of her. I played the part of a confused old woman repeating details loudly enough for her to hear. By the time I hung up, her face was glowing like a chandelier. "Wow, Mom, that's incredible," she said, sweetness dripping from every word. "Do you need help managing all that? We could open a joint account for convenience." I smiled and nodded as the tiny red light inside the cookie tin blinked steadily. Within a week, they were floating phrases like power of attorney and for your safety. Every conversation was polished, rehearsed, and poisonous. I listened. I smiled. And I recorded every single syllable. Then one night, through the paper-thin walls, I heard Lydia's voice in the dark. If she refuses, she whispered, "We'll have her declared incompetent. It's faster than waiting for her to die." My blood ran cold, but my mind stayed sharp. I stared at the ceiling, breathing slow, memorizing every word. That was when I stopped feeling afraid, because now I had proof, and I knew the final act was coming soon. It was a Saturday morning, quiet and sunlit, the kind of morning when the world feels calm enough to start forgiving itself. I was in the kitchen brewing coffee, letting the smell fill the house when the front door slammed. Heavy footsteps, voices low but tense. Lydia appeared first, all sharp edges and false smiles, Brian right behind her blocking the doorway like a security guard. "We need to settle this today," she said, her tone so rehearsed it might as well have been read from a script. Before I could respond, she slid a stack of papers onto the counter, legal-looking, covered in neat little tabs. "These are for the joint account," she said. "You'll get a monthly allowance of $500, and Brian and I will help oversee expenses. You won't have to worry about a thing." I stared at her, then at my son. He couldn't meet my eyes, so I said softly, "You're putting me on an allowance, like a child." "It's not like that," Mom Brian muttered. "It's just structure, protection." From what I asked, Lydia folded her arms. "From bad decisions, from scammers. You've been forgetful lately." I blinked. Forgetful. Brian cleared his throat. "You left the stove on last week. That was you," I said quietly. They both froze, but Lydia recovered fast. "Mom, this defensiveness worries me. Maybe it's time for a professional evaluation." I set my cup down and looked her straight in the eye. "Is that medical advice or a threat?" Her lips curled into that poisonous smile I'd learned to dread. "It's for your own good." The room went still. Even the clock seemed to pause. Then she said it, the line I'd heard once before in my nightmares. Old lottery winners have accidents all the time. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. The smell of coffee turned sour in the air. Then without a word, I turned toward the mantel where a decorative vase caught the morning light. I looked right into it and said calm and clear, "Did you get that, Daniel?" The silence shattered. Lydia's mouth fell open. Brian's face drained of color. Then from the storage room behind them, the door creaked open and Daniel Perez stepped out, camera rolling, microphone in hand. Lydia gasped. What are you doing here?" I kept my voice steady. "This house has been recording your every word for 6 weeks. Every threat, every lie, every plan." Brian sank into a chair like the air had been sucked out of him. Lydia's voice cracked. "You can't use this. It's illegal." I smiled almost gently. Colorado is a one-party consent state, and I'm that one party. For the first time in months, I saw real fear in their eyes, not the kind born from guilt, but from being exposed. Then I gave them the final truth. "By the way," I said, pulling the folded bank statement from my pocket that sweepstakes call fake, "I didn't win $25,000. I won $58 million. Lydia's face went white as chalk. Brian's coffee cup slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. The masks had finally fallen, and underneath them, there was nothing left but greed and shame. Daniel turned over every second of footage to the police and the local news station. Within 48 hours, the story broke across Denver like a thunderclap. Elderly woman outsmarts family in $58 million Powerball case. The headline ran on every network my kitchen seen, looping endlessly. Lydia's threat, my calm reply. Daniel stepping out with the camera. Reporters camped outside my gate for days, their microphones like bayonets of curiosity. Some called me brave. Others whispered I was cold-hearted for turning on my own family. The truth was simpler, I hadn't turned on them. They'd already turned on me. Brian and Lydia were charged with conspiracy to commit financial elder abuse and criminal threats against a vulnerable adult. Their mugshots hit the news before I'd even had time to process what was happening. The phone rang nonstop, old friends, neighbors, even strangers wanting to tell me they were proud of me. I appreciated it, but pride wasn't what I felt. I felt tired. The trial started in early spring. I sat in the front row, hands folded, listening as the defense tried to repaint everything in softer colors. My clients were motivated by concern, Lydia's lawyer said. They feared for Mrs. Evans's safety and simply overstepped in their attempt to help. Then the prosecutor played the recording. If she refuses, we'll have her declared incompetent. It's faster than waiting for her to die. The words filled the courtroom like poison gas. Nobody moved. Even the judge's expression flickered. I looked at Brian. He couldn't look back. After 2 days of testimony, the verdict came down hard and clean. Brian, 14 months in federal prison. Lydia, 18. Both ordered to complete 200 hours of community service in nursing homes after release. When the bailiff cuffed them, I didn't smile, didn't cry, just breathed. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of my own house, my own family, my own shadow. Freedom doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it comes in the quiet space after the door closes behind someone who can't hurt you anymore. Daniel's documentary aired 6 months later, The Widow Who Fought Back. It wasn't sensational. Not really, it was raw, steady, and honest. He told the story the way it happened, letting the footage speak for itself, and it spoke loudly. Letters began pouring in from all over the country. Women in their 60s, 70s, 80s, some widowed, some forgotten by their families, all saying the same thing. You gave me courage. I sat at my kitchen table, stacks of envelopes around me, tears smudging the ink on my fingers. For the first time since Harold died, I felt connected again to something bigger than loss, bigger than betrayal. I realized then I wasn't the only one who'd been underestimated. I was part of an army of quiet, overlooked women who were finally standing up and saying, enough. 1 year after everything unraveled, I stood in front of a modest brick building in downtown Denver, with my name painted across the glass door, the Evans Foundation for Elder Dignity. It wasn't a skyscraper or a fancy charity headquarters, just a quiet office with sunlight pouring through the windows and the steady hum of women rebuilding their lives inside. Still, it felt like the biggest thing I'd ever done. I started the foundation with a portion of my lottery winnings. The rest I put into trust funds for the future. But this mission, was for the women who never got their apology, who spent decades being told to be grateful while their savings, homes, and dignity were slowly stolen. We used the money to pay legal fees, to fund safe housing, and to build a crisis fund for women trapped by the people who were supposed to love them most. Every week, letters arrive, handwritten, shaky, desperate, or defiant. My son took my retirement money. My daughter forged my signature. My family says I'm senile when I question them. Each one feels like déjà vu. I read every single one and I answer as many as I can. Some days it breaks my heart. Other days it fills it. My granddaughter Sophie volunteers here on weekends. She helps organize donations, manages our small online community, and most importantly, helps me write back to those women who feel like no one believes them. She's only 21, but she carries a kind of empathy most people never learn. Watching her really listen to someone's story reminds me that maybe something good came out of all the pain. People often ask if I'm happy now. I tell them happiness isn't a constant state. It's a choice you remake every morning. Some mornings I wake up grateful. Others I wake up remembering the sound of Lydia's voice saying, "People your age have accidents all the time." But I don't shake anymore. I sip my tea. I breathe and I remember who I became because of that moment. Someone once asked me if I'd forgiven them. My answer hasn't changed. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's refusing to let their cruelty define me. I don't erase the past, I reclaim it. That night in the kitchen will always exist, but so will the moment I decided to fight back with my mind instead of my anger. The truth is, the lottery didn't save me. It revealed me. It showed me that power isn't found in money or revenge. It's found in knowing your worth and refusing to be treated as less than human. If you're listening now, if you've been dismissed, used, or told that your voice doesn't matter, please hear me. You still have time. You still have strength. You still have the right to demand respect, even if you have to build it from the ground up. I'm Margaret Evans, and this was my story. Thank you for listening. If you believe every woman deserves dignity, please follow Share This Story and leave a comment about something you've overcome. Because every time a woman tells her truth out loud, the silence loses its power and the world becomes a little safer for all of us.